About 12 years ago, we actually merged an event called Industry Day into Coastal Day at the legislature, and it was a one-day opportunity to really celebrate all things coastal, with an opportunity to visit with the coastal industry, contractors, consultants, stakeholders, all of the above that work in coastal. Give them an opportunity to see what we're working on. And what it's really improved over the years. I think every year we make this opportunity better and better. But you can see here, I mean, all of these things, and if you were present yesterday at the in-person or virtual CPRA forecast, you saw the same slide. But at the end of the day today, and for the remainder of the webinar, we'll be focused on information exchange. Our goal here is, in addition to the project forecast of the projects we may be letting for bids, we want to provide some information on how things operate at CPRA. We'll kind of get into the other webinars later on, but today we're going to talk about contracting. Really all things contracting at CPRA, the type of project we work on from a design and construction standpoint, as well as the contracting status when you make the future solicitation, contract usage, etc. And then we'll talk a little bit about construction and maybe some of our bid trends and some of the things we're doing to address that. So let's dive right in. Once again, I replaced the word Industry Day with Industry Week. And really, we're on the second day here. Monday kicked us off. You can see all of those top 6 bullets, 5 bullets were accomplished. It was a great day. And now we're going to head into the rest of the week. 2 p.m. today, there is another project forecast. We've got so many projects actually being delivered by our partners that we had to break into a special session. That is a virtual meeting open to anybody. The link will be provided at the end of this presentation, and it's actually up on all of our social media and email and all that good stuff. And then today through Friday, we'll have a lunchtime webinar each day. This is the first one, as I mentioned. So there's a lot of new faces. I was just glancing at the attendee list here. I got 30 people on, and some names I don't recognize, which is good. That's really one of the purposes of this meeting, is to inform people on the types of things we work on. If you're new to working in Louisiana, or if you're a Louisiana company that's interested in kind of getting into coastal work, this is your opportunity to see the types of projects we work on and how to maybe come upon one of those opportunities in the future. Everything we do in terms of project delivery is guided by our coastal master plan. Just last week, our 2023 edition of the master plan got approved. This is a quick snapshot of the 2017 master plan for visual purposes, but you can kind of see it's a $50 billion 50-year plan, evenly split between restoration and risk reduction flood protection projects. Since the inception of CPRA in 2007, we have implemented many master plan projects, and here's the stats on what all of those projects produced. Over 55,000 acres and counting benefited throughout that period, most of which was created using dredge sediment. We'll talk a little bit about dredging further down. Through partnerships with agencies like the Corps, local parishes, various levee districts, we've built or improved nearly 400 miles of levees. And we're very proud of the Barrow Island work that we've done. Barrow Islands are our first line of defense in terms of our coast, and 72 miles of Barrow Islands and counting. We're working on several as we speak. Our funding picture, our annual plan was actually approved last week as well by our board. It heads to the legislature. But you can see here, every year, in addition to producing a master plan every 6 years, every year the legislature requires us to give a forecast for our spending in that fiscal year. The forecast for this particular fiscal year 24, which starts on July 1st, is $1.74 billion, with 85% of that being dedicated to construction projects. So that's a very impressive stat, something we're very proud of. The money that flows through this agency directly gets put into projects on the ground. Moving forward, you can see that number does start to go down as the all spill settlement dollars continue to be spent. But once again, we continue to build projects, or use the majority of our funds to build projects that we've been designing over the years. Here's our current active project list. You can see to double down on what I just said, we've got 40 projects in construction between contracts that CPRA owns, as well as projects we're funding through our partners. And you can see there as well in the engineering and design being prepared for construction, 57 additional projects. We'll kind of visit on each of those two branches of project delivery and talk about the contracts and how we hire people to do that work for us. Kind of getting into a few details if you're interested in the type of projects that CPRA works on. You know, in the past several editions of our master plan, cornerstone has been diverting Mississippi River water and sediment to rebuild parts of our coast. The project that is nearing construction, and we hope to have it under construction this summer, is the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion. You can see here from this little cartoon kind of what that project looks like and how it will work. At certain times of the year, the gates would be open, water and sediment would flow down a man-made canal that will be constructed, flow into the marsh and rebuild the wetlands, just like Mother Nature did several thousand years ago. Flood protection, it's the P of CPRA. In addition to the projects we work on here, we support many of our partners, whether it be federal agencies or some of the levee districts and local parishes in implementing flood protection projects. And what you see on the screen before you is the Morganza to the Gulf system, which I think protects hundreds of thousands of people in the greater Houma area, in and around Houma, Louisiana, Terrebonne Parish. This is an ongoing effort. It's a project that was started decades ago. It's many different projects all being constructed to serve the common purpose of completing this entire system. Earthen levees, concrete walls, pump stations, environmental structures have all been designed and constructed and continue to be designed and constructed under this program. Shoreline protection. This is, if you've worked on coastal projects in other parts of the country, or if you're familiar with coastal engineering work, one of the most tried and true measures is placing hardened structures, rock, riprap, concrete, other hardened features on a shoreline to protect from wave erosion caused by waves. You see two examples here. On the right, the Rockefeller shoreline, which is in the central part of the state, central west part of the state. And then you see Queen Bess, a bird habitat island that had been recently built. And in order to keep it on the map as long as possible, we're installing rock along the edges to protect from erosion. And we also recently have worked on several small scale projects. And I give this example to kind of give a snapshot of what may come in a newer program that we're involved in, which is the Chapelizod Basin program, where we may see the types of projects that you see on the map. Fishing piers, boat launches, you see a nature walk at the Sycamore Point area there. We do envision in the future, we may see similar projects to this in the Chapelizod Basin program, which is one of the goals and purposes there. So over the years, our agency has designed, bid, and constructed several types of recreational use projects. Most of the work, as mentioned in that stat slide earlier, has been accomplished with the use of hydraulic dredging equipment. You can see picture on your left is the front view of a hydraulic dredge with its cutter head up out of the water. Normally that piece of equipment has the cutter head in the water at the bottom, agitating the sediment and actually pumping it through a series of pumps through a pipeline. The other end of that pipeline looks like the picture on the right, where you see the dredge sediment slurry spewing out into the marsh. You see the earth moving equipment, moving it around, making sure it's built to grade. So when we deal with directly building land, most of the time we're using hydraulic dredging equipment. Over the years, you saw 72 miles of Barrow Islands have been done with dredging by hydraulic dredges. That's the sand on this island, Shell Island West, which was several years ago, was actually pumped from the Mississippi River, which is about 20 miles to the north of here, through a pipeline and a series of booster pumps from a hydraulic dredge in the river. But you can kind of get a picture of the size and scale of these Barrow Island projects when we construct them. Our most recent project, the West Grand Terre Barrow Island project, recently completed. If you're familiar with Grand Isle, this is the next island over to the east from Grand Isle. The video here kind of gives you a good perspective of what the construction site looks like while we're building that. So this pipeline has come from several miles offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. You can see they're oftentimes split. The split to the right is pumping sand. You see the Marsh buggy excavator helping to move that material around. See the longitudinal dikes helping to increase that retainage time, let the sediment drop out, and we have a beach at the end. This project was completed in the latter part of 2022, and it's our most recently completed Barrow Island project. Marsh Creation, that table I showed you, it is probably the most common project that we design and construct. I think we have 12 of these under construction as we speak. Just to give you a feel, same concept as a Barrow Island. You're pumping sediment from some body of water out the end of that pipe. Once that material is deposited, it's kind of drained and dewatered. In the middle picture shows you what that looks like. And then a year later, you see the vegetation. This particular site is using Mississippi River sediment, has a tendency to vegetate pretty quickly. It's got a lot of nutrients in it, and you can see that. So the goal is to recreate marsh habitat as quickly as possible using dredge sediment. A lot of dredge contractors have worked for Louisiana, but in addition to the dredge contractors, we also have a lot of support equipment. You can kind of see our most recent large-scale project that's under construction, the Lake Bourne Marsh Creation project. It's actually the largest marsh creation project by acre we've ever designed and built. Given where it's at, 2,700 acres of marsh. This video kind of shows some of the support equipment building the earthen containment dikes. In a little while, you'll see some of the marsh slurry that have been pumped. We're right at kind of the beginning phases of this project in terms of the pumping part. This project will be ongoing for quite some time, given that it's over 2,700 acres of marsh being created. But it is one of our most recent and largest scale marsh creation projects that we've been working on in terms of construction. We put a lot of focus on earthen containment dikes. So even though the hydraulic dredging component of these projects is critical, the support equipment, the support subcontractors are also critical. A marsh creation project can only be successful as the earthen containment dikes that we build around it. Basically, we built small levees around the perimeter of the site. Dredge material is pumped in. The earthen containment dikes help contain that material and keep it on the footprint that we're intended to build. You can see from this little cartoon, which was provided by geoengineers, that actual excavator is digging from the inside of the marsh creation area and depositing that material to the left on the dike footprint. That pit, that borrow channel that you see there will be infilled once the dredge pumping is started. This is a great picture, a great series of pictures from Southwest Louisiana near the Calgary Ship Channel that does show you what that little schematic is just in real pictures. You see the first lift kind of place chunks of really good clay in this situation just to get up to elevation. Other pieces of equipment will come behind that first lift or second lift and actually smooth and grade that to the proper elevation. And then you see once that dike has hit the sun and allowed to dry, it's an actual, it actually has a good bit of structural integrity and it actually serves its purpose, just to give you a feel for that. So that was a quick kind of 10-minute background on all really the primary things we accomplish in terms of the project types as an agency. The next series of slides will really get into the contracting mechanisms, an overview of those contract types, what we use those for, and then we'll visit on the construction side as well. So for at least for the intents and purposes of today's conversation, we'll talk really three types of contracts: professional services, which are going to be your engineering, surveying, geotechnical, consulting services, which is your science, environmental contracts, and then construction. We'll start with professional services. You can see there engineering, geotechnical surveying, all of our design, a lot of our analysis in terms of geotechnical and testing surveys are done through professional services contracts. They can be project specific, so we have awarded a solicitation for a specific project, but the agency does hold several retainer contracts or indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. That is our most frequent mechanism for awarding professional services work through contract. So you can see there that second bullet, large scale design efforts may involve project specific solicitation. For example, the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion It was over a $40 million design effort. We did not use one of our retainer contracts for a variety of reasons. We did a project specific solicitation to award that contract, and we've done that several times over the years. You can see third bullet, all of our data collection effort to support our in-house designs, survey and geotechnical are done through these contracts. And like I said before, most of it has been through IDIQ task order. So we have a series of contracts put in place. They're on retainer for a contract, a do not exceed amount, and then we issue task orders against those contracts. So that actual IDIQ contract is acquired through a qualifications-based solicitation. It has to be qualifications-based in the state of Louisiana. Excuse me. There cannot be a cost component associated with the award of a professional services contract. Can be awarded to one or more firms. 3-year max is state law. Our retainers specifically were staggered previously, so they began and ended on different years. And starting in January of 23, they're all on the same cycle. So all of our contracts for the professional services side recently started in January 2023 and will end 3 years later. Here is the current breakdown of the amount of contracts that we have. Like I said, January 2023 is the start date, December 2025 is the end date. 21 total professional services engineering contracts in the engineering category. Within engineering, we have 3 subcategories: general engineering, coastal engineering, and limited services. You can see the breakdown there. Limited services being targeted to small Louisiana-owned businesses, Hudson Initiative, veteran-owned companies. 7 geotechnical services contracts at $1.5 million apiece, and 8 surveying. As I said, these contractors just began about 5 months ago. So our next solicitation in anticipation for starting a new round in January of 26 would be a mid-2025 solicitation date. Now you see that asterisk, in addition to the 21 new contracts we just brought on, we did have several that were not set to expire until 24. So there are 10 that will go off by 2024. So there actually is a few more than 21 engineering contracts then. There we go. Sorry about that. So we'll kind of give you, to make sure I'm on the right slide. Okay, right there. Kind of give you a breakdown of where we're at in terms of our IDIQ professional services usage. So total contract value across all contracts, we have $54 million in contracts over that number I just showed you on the previous slide. To date, starting in January 23, we've tasked out about $16 million for a 29% capacity. It is a little misleading. That number, I guess, is pretty high given that we're only in the first part of the first year of the contract. However, there were a lot of carryover task orders from previously expiring contracts. Geotechnical and surveying, you can see very similar, 10% on the geotechnical side, 40% on surveying, and that's largely in part due to some carryover task orders that came from the old contract. Consulting services, very similar to professional services. These are the contracts that are put in place to assist the agency with all things pertaining to environmental science and planning. Any type of consultation, investigation in terms of cultural resources, environmental studies, program management, anything of that nature is done through a consultant services contract. Really the same rules apply for the most part. It can be project specific or through a retainer IDIQ. The only major difference in the solicitation is there is a cost component in the scoring of the proposal. A rate sheet has to be provided, and that is scored. It's very similar 3-year solicitation schedule, so they're on a very similar schedule to the professional services. Currently have 10, $3 million each. Basically, the term is summer of 22 to summer of 25. So you would expect to see the next solicitation in a late 24, maybe early 25 timeframe in anticipation of getting those new contracts up and running for the fall of 25. The usage there, 30 million in total contract capacity with about 3.4 million used at 11%. So I mentioned we have some solicitations there. They are at least the IDIQs are a good ways out. However, the agency does put out project-specific solicitations at times. If you are interested in working for the agency in terms of professional or consultant services work, you can hit the, on our homepage, front and center is the RFP, RSIQ, and contracts button. It's denoted by a small excavator. Once you hit that link, you will see two others, contracts and procurements and professional consultant services. The green button is where all of our solicitations would be located there. One note, we do have a Hudson and Veteran Initiative preference in all of our professional and consultant services solicitations. And this is to give points for entities and teams and firms who are utilizing Hudson and veteran-owned companies. The details of how this works in terms of the score does vary from solicitation to solicitation. So we do always advise to read the solicitation carefully. But the details would be included in that solicitation. Don't assume that the previous solicitation details will always carry over. It does vary based on the contract type, project team preference, etc. All right, we'll kind of take it to the next few slides here in terms of construction and discuss where we're heading on construction and in the contracts and how you can actually obtain the solicitations. Then we'll talk a little bit about the recent bid stats. So governed by Title 38, this is pretty straightforward. For the most part, most of the major construction that we do here in the agency is going to be awarded on a cost-based bid. Lowest responsible bidder will get the job or will be awarded the job, assuming it's within the government's estimate. And the law does allow for a maximum of 3 alternate optional bid items. We'll discuss those a little bit later as well. Very similar to see any construction solicitation, and these are really kind of are constantly being populated as we design and bid projects. As you saw yesterday, we do have several projects slated to go to bid. They will be posted here once they do advertise. But once again, the button that is denoted by the small excavator is where you want to be. And the blue button here, contract and procurement, is where all of our construction solicitations are put out. That page would also include the other pieces of information like the bid opening date, as well as any addenda and pre-bid meetings and anything of that sort. Would all be included on that next page. So we'll spend probably the next 5 minutes or so talking about recent trends, and this is for those on the webinar who have worked on public works projects. This is an issue that we've been seeing since the beginning of 2022, and that is just as anything else, a gallon of milk, a gallon of gas, or any other thing you buy, we have seen increased construction costs across the board due to inflation and a variety of other reasons. And for the most part, and this list can be added to definitely, but you know, supply chain issues, getting goods to site, of course, material prices, labor shortages, and fuel prices, all are driving at least our project. These are some of the main culprits. Most of our projects, or a lot of our projects, are being built in areas where a lot of industrial construction is happening. So it is difficult for some of these contractors to get a dedicated labor pool there, given some of the locations of the project. In recent months, we have seen some improvements since the beginning of 22, but probably since the end of 22 on into early 23. But we're still significantly higher than the price levels we saw in 21 before some of these inflation impacts started to happen on the construction side. Some feedback we are getting is longer contracts. You will see bidders and contractors account for that risk and price volatility. So if they're going to lock in a price on a long contract, you may see that in their bid, especially when you have a lot of materials that you see before: steel, cement, asphalt, etc. We've spoken to a lot of other public agencies, the Corps of Engineers, DOTD. They're seeing the same sort of trends across the board on a lot of projects that they've been bidding as well. So unfortunately, we have projects to deliver. We don't have the option to ride this out. And so we'll kind of discuss what we're seeing and how we're addressing it coming up here. So looking since Q1 of 22, You can see there a total of all bids that we've received, at least our budget / engineer estimate. And a lot of times the final engineer estimate was really just taken to the maximum budget. You can see 154 million. If you summed all low bids, it's 189 million. That's about a 22% difference. So we fell short about $35 million since Q1 of 22. That doesn't necessarily mean the projects were not awarded. We'll discuss that in a little bit. But that kind of gives you a picture when you summed everything up of where we landed over the projects that we bid. Looking forward, looking from present day on into the end of in beginning of 24, we're anticipating a large amount of bids to come out of the agency, as you saw yesterday. So what I did was I went in and looked at the original budgets, and then we actually, as engineers, adjusted those estimates based on recent bid trends that we're seeing. So one of the things we're seeing is about a 15% difference. So right now, if we were to go to our original budgets for all of our projects, we would fall about $51 million short in terms of the way we analyze this one. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to need $51 million more dollars to award these projects. I'm just saying if you went to the original budgets and made no adjustments to your design, and then went to a more updated cost estimate based on recent trends, this is the deficit that you would see if you were to take that approach. So what types of actions is CPRA taken to mitigate this? Like I said before, we're not going to hang it up and not bid projects. And for the most part, the second bullet may not really be a viable option. So the first bullet is probably the most common approach we've taken. We've reduced project footprint, eliminated project features, value engineering, and actually looked specifically in terms of the dredging project, maybe at some of the higher risk features. So for example, a couple of projects have looked at the Marsh Creation site that's the furthest pump distance being the most costly, and maybe decided to eliminate that. We have taken advantage of alternate bid items more so than we have ever in the past. We are starting to put projects down with 2 and 3 in some cases alternate bid items to make an attempt to get to the full footprint of the project. If we were to get low bids, we'll award as many options as we could in that situation. And then at least one time we have rejected bids because we could not afford to bid the project. That is probably the option of last resort, is to reject bids. But at the end of the day, if the bids are so much extraordinarily higher than our budget, we have no option there. I think a lot of you out there in terms of engineering consultants and contractors are very familiar with these conversations. CPRA is doing the best we can to balance it. Us and our partners, we're working with some of our partners on these projects to address this, really be upfront as possible, and try to award as much as we can during kind of these really interesting economic times. So, we're always interested in feedback from contractors, engineering consultants, and others as to what they're seeing. But what I just presented to you in the past several slides is what we've seen here as an agency, and what we're doing about it in terms of the way we're approaching the bid documents. So once again, the second bullet is there because we have had 1 or 2 projects that has had that luxury, but for the most part, we've been in a situation where the original project as conceived does not look as large and has been reduced down in order to get to an award. That's the last slide in terms of the contracting conversation. I'm well ahead of time here. I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions. I'm not sure if we had any in chat, but I'm happy to address any questions or even feedback and observations from any of the participants here on the webinar on anything that I just presented. As I close this out, I'll kind of give you a quick overview of the upcoming webinars, but we'll pause here. Like I said, feel free to type any questions in the chat, and we will we'll definitely try to answer those questions for you if we can. I'll just continue. Go ahead. For the sake of time, feel free to keep typing those questions in if you have any. Upcoming webinars, 2 p.m. today. We have, if you participated in yesterday's CPRA-led coastal construction project forecast. Today at 2 virtual only is the partner-led. So we'll have representatives from parishes, levy districts, et cetera, all presenting their upcoming construction bids in a similar format to what was done yesterday. And just to note, we've got several requests. The PowerPoint as well as the video will be provided on our website. We'll probably be sending some information out as to how that can be obtained, and the partner-led project forecast will definitely be provided as well. Moving into the other lunchtime webinars, today's Tuesday, tomorrow is the 26th. We'll jump right into Leanne Sharp's tomorrow. She'll be presenting on the CRIM sites. This is our CRIMS system that has data collection platforms all across our coast. Leanne will give a broad overview of the system itself and maybe even some insights as to what type of data we're getting, what we've learned from that system. Moving into Thursday, Stu Brown, coming off a recent approval from the CPRA board, he'll be giving an overview of how you can view some of the master plan data, particularly the master plan data viewer, and access some of that data. And then lastly, Shane Fox will be presenting on CPRA's VEG program, vegetative planning program on Friday. So that's all I have for everybody. I'm, like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions if any of y'all have any. If not, we will dismiss. I'll give it another several seconds there. Feel free to put any comments in the chat, any questions in the chat as well. All right, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, we have one here. Yep, and that is Joe Gonzalez. If everybody sees the screen here, any consideration of including price index for fuel, materials, etc. We have thought about that. We've gotten that request before. At least on the current project that we're working on, we have not decided to go that route. If we do continue to see this happen, we could actually implement that. DOTD has done something similar. I'm not sure I can answer your second question, which says, would you require legislation for this? However, I do think that I know that DOTD has offered similar provisions in some of its specifications for certain commodities. At this point, we haven't really entertained adding this provision to our specs, particularly given since the recent months we have seen some stability in prices. If that does change, we may reopen that conversation. Appreciate the question. I think there's one more coming in.
So Joe saying thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Joe. All right, with that, we'll conclude today. I definitely appreciate everybody jumping on. Once again, this was recorded, so we will actually provide the video as well as the PDF of the presentation for everybody. And as always, if you need to reach out to us, feel free. A lot of people on the website, there's an email address for contact, and you can also reach out to us via social media there. Thank everybody. Have a good rest of your Tuesday, and enjoy the rest of the week of webinars. Thank y'all very much.